the AmBank BizClub show. I'm with Goh Ai Ching, the co-founder and CEO of Piktochart. Ai Ching, welcome to our show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
All right, Ai Ching. No, tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, not many people here, I think, know about your background. You actually were not really involved with infographics at all, and you ended up moving from a very traditional role into a CEO role. Talk us through that journey.
Okay. I don't know how far I should go back, but I was like born and bred here in Penang, and all my life I have always been interested with human minds, human beings, so I actually studied psychology. It wasn't ordinary psychology even. I needed to study something that was more scientific, so I took experimental psychology, and what that meant is...
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, you put all sorts of like devices and then you measure brain waves and all that, so I did that for 3 years in UK. So after coming back, I was like, actually... actually, what made me, what I actually discovered, why was it that I was so interested in human minds after that, it wasn't just understanding the human mind, but understanding the collective human experience. And the first place that I decided to go and explore that was actually in a corporate marketing background. But after doing that, then I realized, oh goodness, like I like the marketing and psychology and how do you...
And you joined P&G, right?
And I joined P&G, yes.
Right.
So I like that aspect of understanding the collective human and how we all thought, but then I didn't gel very well with the corporate culture. So
why? What was wrong with all these corporate people?
So a lot of top down, and I think like being branded as one of like the Gen Y people, it was hard for me to just spread my wings and basically fly because we obviously all had instructions from top down. So that was something that didn't go so well with me. But to be honest, I think it was more my immaturity at that time. So what happened was, after I quit, I also went into a very deep health crisis. What happened, and this is obviously very painful for me to talk about, but I was diagnosed with 2 things. One in my gastrointestinal, and the doctor actually thought it was glaucoma, a type of cancer. Fortunately, it wasn't. And then I was also diagnosed with an ovarian cyst. So I came back to Penang and I went through medical treatment. What took most people like 2 weeks to 1 month to recover, I took 3 months in bed. So the 3 months, and I was hit with this pretty early in my life, so it made me question about what on earth was it that I wanted out of life. And it made me like really think and dig very deep, and that was when I realized I needed to be in a place and create an organization that I would enjoy going to work every single day, and a product that I would love, and people that I would love working with. So that was not how Piktochart was born, but I went into the startup world thinking first about that.
So did you conceive Piktochart, or it's something that sort of pivoted over a period of time?
No, we conceived Piktochart at the very beginning already. So we first started out like web design, because back then my husband was a web developer, and we were like, okay, we have nothing to lose. Let's just try something out. And then I was reading a lot about like inbound marketing, how to sell our own web design business at that time. We came across a huge amount of like visual materials, and I tried Photoshop, Illustrator, and it was hell. So so then we were like, why don't we build our own tools? So that was the whole idea.
And how did that realization came? Was it like a sudden moment, or it's a couple of different things that you tried that evolved, that somehow came to this special moment?
Yeah, I was just reading a lot, like being already very used to traditional advertising. I was like trying to see what, how the digital advertising was moving, and I realized that there was this movement called inbound marketing. So back then, my background at least, it was all in push advertising. So we bought ads everywhere. But the new, at least what I believe, the new age of advertising came, and that was actually in information consumption. If you want to sell a product, you need to give good information, and you're not feeding your product at all. You're selling how to, like if you're like how to be good leaders, right? That's what you're going to be selling. You wouldn't be selling Leaderonomics at all. So I believed in that, and I started looking. And slowly the idea of Piktochart came about.
Wow. And how, I mean, you ended up doing it with, that time, your boyfriend, and now your husband. How was that tough? I mean, having to work with somebody so close and building something together, or was that a good thing?
Okay. In the beginning, it was tough. It was definitely tough. I don't fully recommend it for everyone, but because it took about 2 years to learn when not to push all of the red buttons. But after that, I mean, today we're like happily married. It's been 11 years that we're in this relationship, and
2.5 months ago, something special happened.
2.5 months ago, we also conceived a startup, a baby girl. So
yes, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, you talk about that moment, that pivotal moment when, you know, you had to be in bed for 3 months. And, you know, if you look at great leaders like Steve Jobs, they had this moment, like he was in India for 3 years. You know, do you think that leaders should be pulling back every couple of years to be in solitude, to really be, or pull away from what they do so that they can really understand? And this is the clarity of knowing where you want to go, right? Because you, in moments like that, you say, look, my life is short. I need to know exactly what I want to do. And I need to, my organization, you know, means this and so on and so forth. You know, what advice would you give others? Like, I mean, we're in the middle of running a company. How do we do that to pull ourselves out and take that moment? I mean, it happened to you naturally, but how do we do that?
That's such a good, really, really good question, because thanks to that experience, I kept asking myself, if my life was to be taken away from me at this moment, what would I have regretted most? And how would I have wanted to live my life, and how would I have wanted the organization to be? So the unfortunate thing is, I know that unless we are hit with a health crisis, or for me, maternity leave and things like that, I don't think we will purposely remove ourselves from work. I mean, I think I could speak with most of everyone in this room is probably an A+, you know, type of person. We're all super achievers, and nobody can fathom taking away 3 months off their work to do nothing but reflect and contemplate. So it feels really hard, and that's unfortunate, but I think it's important. Everyone has to go through this like little desert before, you know, they discover what is it that they're fully capable of, and maybe a really good idea also would come out of like the whole time of reflecting.
And you know, I shared a bit about different constraints that are out there. You know, one of is culture, right? How did you conceive or build, and what type of culture do you have at Piktochart, and what did you do to build that culture that you have today?
We went through, you know, just now when I was listening to your presentation, I thought, oh God, like we made so many mistakes, like, you know. So
did we, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's how we learn, right?
So many. So in the beginning, we started out as a family. And until today, we have some of our earliest employees from like 6 years ago, and they're still with us. So they still think of us as a family, but they know that this family is not the same. Now, the issue is when you are 10, no problem. Everyone's adik abang, no problem. Okay, when you get to 20, maybe no problem. You get to 50, actually something happens at the magical number. Things start shifting. Your dynamics and your team changes, and suddenly you can't keep up with all of the names of the brothers and sisters that everyone has. And it becomes a bit impossible. And also because we were a family, we started out as a democratic organization. So everything was based on consensus. We voted on everything. We want to go where for annual trip, voted. You know, want to do what food to eat at the office, also voted. Like everything was voting. And you can imagine, like at 10, no problem. 10 people, no problem. When you get to 50, it's a problem. When you get to 100, nightmare.
Yeah. So what do you do? I mean, I think all of us face this problem, right?
Yes.
In our little startups or SMEs. And what did you do to overcome this challenge as you grew?
I think to be intentional, like when we realized that this democratic thing wasn't working out so well, so we started explaining that, hey, we're going to take in all of, you know, we're going to listen to the feedback, but when we have deliberated and the leadership has thought about it and we came out with a decision, that one, not so much you can contest, but in the process of the deliberation, we are going to take in whatever feedback that comes.
And how did that work? I mean, was there a negative reaction initially, or what did people just say, okay, whatever?
Surprisingly, most people actually were glad about those changes because they felt that things were moving a bit too slowly. So they were happy to see that, you know, someone was giving a direction, they could move on. So sometimes it's just our leaders' own fears. It has nothing to do at all with what they perceive, the employees perceive. It's more to do with us.
So, it's very impressive. In 6-7 years, you've built an organization that is recognized as the top few in the world in the infographics world or space. What were some obstacles that you had to overcome? Big obstacles that were tough, and how what did you do to overcome them? And talk us through that journey. More important, I think, is the learnings that you can glean for us.
All of the challenges that we came up with, they were all cultural and all internal. So whatever our competitors did, that was no problem. You could always come up with a new plan, a new business model, like do something, in order or raise some funding, do something essentially. I always felt that all of the obstacles we had were internal. So even in terms of the leadership, we were young, we were promoted from within. So that gave us some severe shortcomings that we couldn't see. So essentially, a lot of the leaders were young and not so experienced. So we had to make so many mistakes and go through letting go of people, the first time we had to let go of people and all that, like those things were definitely challenging. And then after that, like I mentioned, the democracy slowed us down a lot. And when we stopped doing that, I can see things changing again. And actually one of the things that I felt stopped us somehow was actually what was mentioned just now, fear of failure. That got us...
Talk us through that, because I think somebody in the audience really wants to know, how do you overcome that, right?
Yeah, so the fear of failure is, again, we grew organically through a lot of search engine optimization, and that was like from day one, because we're one of the first tools, so we got a head start and we were there. But what happened as we continue to grow, all companies come to this stage where it plateaus. And when it plateaus, then there's obviously a lot of voices in the company about where the company should be going. And with each of these, although everyone wants to go, like everyone has like 5 different groups that they want to go in, but there's this great fear of failure about them having the wrong hunch and putting the whole company in peril or danger of not taking it right. How I overcame it, so I'm naturally, the way that I am, I'm a bit rash. I don't think so much, and I'm not very data driven. I know that doesn't sound so good to be a leader, but that I always felt that it's better to try and experiment and then see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, shut it down, and if it works, keep going on. So like, and I was mentioning to you yesterday too, we are just about to come up with a startup within a startup, and we've also tried previously. We separated the product team within core, growth and labs, what we call. And what labs did was more experimental. So they had, like, technically it gave them a license to fail, and that helped people to remember it's okay to fail. And I also remind them and keep sharing, like even Amazon, that has been on the headlines so much these days. And everyone goes like, whoa, like Jeff Bezos did such an amazing bet, bought Whole Foods for X amount of money. They're going to disrupt the entire US grocery market. But everyone celebrates all of the successes. Nobody looks at all of his failed acquisitions. There's so many.
Correct.
He bought this
newspapers also.
Yeah, I mean, he bought this smartphone company for 180 million or something like that, and the whole thing. I mean, do you see a smartphone coming out of Amazon right now? And
they have a Kindle though. So.
Okay, well, but the point being, like, there are definitely a lot of failures, and like people fail to acknowledge that in the process of building a business, you're going to fail multiple times. You just have to keep, going strong. And as a leader, I think it's very important to remind ourselves that it's okay to fail a couple of times and fall down and then come back up again.
Yeah. And I think you make a point. You make an interesting point about failure, and but I think one thing that you say that I think we all struggle with as leaders is that there comes a point that you have to kill democratic behavior or democratic actions, and you have to make that call, right? And you say that was a struggle that you had, but when you did it, right, you say it became a positive thing. But how did you transition? I mean, how did you implement that, And I know we all have to. At some point in time, you got 70 employees, 80 employees. You got to say, look, I got to make the call, and I got to manage the risk, and I got to take the burden of knowing that even though it's a wrong call, too bad, we just all go together, right? How did you enable your employees to follow you? Or, because that's the time where people will leave your company, I don't follow her anymore, and so on and so forth, right? How did you manage to keep them together and still, kowtow to you to some way?
Okay, I don't know if I have the perfect answer for that. I've always gone through explain my rationale. I always take Q&As whenever I do this type of announcements, and I think that helps because they feel listened to. And on top of that, almost with everyone in the company, because it's still we're only 50 something. It's still okay for us to. I have quite a personal or still a good relationship with a lot of people, so they feel like they can approach me or approach anyone in the leadership team if they feel like there's something that they want to bring up. I felt that a lot of it's really through relationships and caring for the person and letting them understand that they're being listened to, and their feedback still matters. But ultimately, the ship has to go, and the ship can't go if every sailor inside decides on 10 different directions of how they want to sail. Somebody has to point the direction, and everyone else does their own job. And that's the only analogy that I've always given, and I've always said that somebody has to look out for the horizon. The rest of us, we do the best that we can. Okay, fantastic. We're going to take a short break right now, and we'll be right back here, AmbankBizClub show, right? Welcome back to the AmbankBizClub show. I'm with Goh Ai Ching,
founder and CEO of Piktochart. I think you were talking a bit about some of your struggles. Let's talk a little bit about your success. Tell us a bit about what's the most proud moment you have, as the leader of Piktochart. Why, and how do you think that was achieved?
I have quite a number of peaks, throughout the whole journey. I'll talk about the most recent one that I shared with the team. So I was interviewing this candidate who applied to us for a position. It's not a very senior position at all. It's quite a assistant team leader type of position. And I was looking at the CV. I was going like, this person's a VP at Salesforce, has done director at eBay and all these type of things. So I was like, why is she interviewing with us?
Piktochart. I also want to work for Piktochart.
Yeah. So I got an interview with her, and I knew that we could not afford her because she was based in the US and way too senior. So I got into a conversation. I discovered that she used Piktochart a lot in Salesforce, and not only that, she was saying how she got her whole team, and they were asking for different features, and she was at a high-ranking position, but still so involved with asking for things for Piktochart to build. And then we also heard that the PR team in Salesforce was going to try to make it mandatory that every single press release that would be released has to come up with a Piktochart. I mean, that was that
you must applause, right?
Yeah, and so for me, I think it was more about hearing all these type of stories internally, also within the employees, but also with our clients. That makes me the happiest person. You feel like the proud mother, of being able to do something that has actually impacted people's lives. Yeah.
Well, what about on the flip side? What is a moment that may have caused you a lot of pain and tension and potentially cripple your business, and that you have really overcome and moved on from?
Yeah, there were some external threats and some more internal. I think the internal ones, they build up. They don't have a volcano that erupts. An external one, there was once where a competitor did this thing called a black hat SEO attack on us. So essentially what they did is they bought negative keywords and things like that for Piktochart. So Google thinks that we are trying to game Google. So what Google did was, and you have to remember that we are a digital business, which means we rely completely on Google's rankings. They removed us completely out of Google. And I was flabbergasted. You don't know what to think and what to say about that. And we couldn't defend ourselves because we don't have proof that we're not the ones who bought those negative keywords. To be honest, it took 2 months, for us to get rid of this, and we had to go directly to the director of SEO in Google through a lot of connections and asked him to look into the case. And 1 week later, we were back in business. But that was nerve-wracking because you feel like you could
just close your whole business down.
Yeah, it could have.
But in those moments, what do you do? I mean, do you? I'm interested to know emotionally, as a trying to be a psychologist like you. Honestly,
because this was really out of our hands. It was not something that was, that we could have controlled. But of course, we did everything that we can in order to get all of the connections and tell Google, hey, we're innocent, have mercy. But that unfortunately took a period of 2 months. But we did finally get to all of the correct relations, all of the people, and finally reached, back then it was Matt Cutts himself, in order to get ourselves back on Google.
All right, that's great. You are with a bunch of CEOs and owners and people who run organizations. And, if I ask you, many of them are at a point where they're trying to scale your business. They want to be the best in the world. You've kind of, taken a small organization, you were early in the game and you managed to got an advantage. And you're now one of the top, if not the best infographics company in the world, right? What advice would you give these guys? I mean, as they try to scale their business, as they try to grow, as they try to become world-class and best in the world, what advice would you give them?
I actually think back to something that you mentioned earlier on that really resonated with me. It's really all about the people. It's about hiring the correct people. It's about getting them to develop properly. It's about setting a good environment, a good culture for them, getting the right systems and processes. And the vision, usually, it's not lacking within CEOs. Most of the time, we all know where we want to go to. But I feel like if there be any fear among us that things like, hey, we're only in Malaysia and we can't, be number one in the world for something that is good and positive. I don't think that is true. And in fact, we've had some leaders in the Valley, CEOs that flew over to our office in Penang to check us out because they couldn't believe that we were, based in a small island in Malaysia. But it's totally possible. Just get rid of that.
And when you started the business, you say you made a lot of mistakes, right? If you had to redo it again, right, what would be some things that you would do differently? And maybe some of these guys, as they grow their business, they can take heed and not make the same mistakes you made. What would they be?
I think I would have been a lot clearer on my vision. No,
I didn't pay her to say that.
Yeah. But this is, I learned so much. I was like nodding my head, thinking like, those were like, exactly the things that
you should have met me 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. Should have had like your experience. Okay, but it was truly, I think, a clearer vision from the beginning. So for me, it's so clear. I work with my baby, literally, day in and day out, and I talk with all of the senior people day in and day out about that, but I forget that does not get translated to everyone else. They do not know that we have like such clear milestones in our head, but it's not there. And shame on us, because we're a visual company. We should have been able to like put that out earlier, and I think that would have been one. And the second one I would not have started with a democratic organization from the beginning.
You would have kept it as okay, very interesting. And probably we'll have to take all my slides and use Piktochart and send it out to everyone. But just to kind of wrap up, I mean, very interesting that you never actually, you had all these Silicon Valley guys coming, offering to buy your company and put money into it. But today you have not taken a cent of money from these guys. Why? And what's the plan for the future?
Not greedy, lol. No, I think that there are a lot of cons actually from taking money, especially from a VC or a PE, because they will want to dictate the company in a certain way, and obviously they want an exit, right? So if we're in this business and we want a long-term type of business, then it's not going to be an ideal partnership, because one wants out and the other wants to run this for as long as possible. So that's the reason why we didn't take money. In terms of plan, I mean,
you've reached a stage where you're recognized as the top infographic company in the world. Everybody knows Piktochart. I mean, if most people globally, especially in the US, they know Piktochart, right? What's next for you? I mean, where do you take Piktochart from here?
Yeah, I alluded to this a little bit. We are planning to build a startup within a startup, so build extension tools that are complementary, and they will help or promote Piktochart in some ways, and also expanding our tools beyond infographics presentations, which are already what we're doing right now. So that would be the next challenge. We have to like go back into the mindset of, hey, we got to do things hackishly, try them out. If they don't work, shut it down, like do the next thing quickly. And
you really don't get tired, huh?
No, I love it, and I still really like what we're doing. Yeah.
Fabulous. My last question, and this is really for our viewers out there who's watching this. If many people would want to be Ai Ching, I want to be like Ai Ching. I want to be a startup CEO that built a global company from Malaysia in a small island, Penang, or wherever I may be. I want to be this person. What advice would you give to these guys who are aspirants, who want to start up companies, who want to build global organizations, but not necessarily they want to build it from where they are? What sort of advice would you give to them?
I think persistence is definitely one of it, because a lot of people tell you no, and then like my mentors in KL also, they were like, hey, what are you doing there? Get out of your island, and so persistence is definitely one. And the second one, I think, is to also be humble. And why I always say be humble, it's actually because there comes a time you will know for your stage of company whether it still makes sense, for example, to be based in Penang. For us, it made sense because our customers, we don't need to meet them face to face. We could be anywhere as long as we could hire the talent and get the engineering talent that we need. But be humble to always receive that feedback. And if you come to realize, hey, this is not working out for my organization, then stop doing it, because like consistently and persistently doing something in the wrong way is a form of pride, I think, and it's not going to be good for the company. So
you potentially can see Piktochart moving if you become a B2B, or you potentially moving location and doing things differently if that happens one day.
Setting up new offices would have been our possible next plan.
All right. Everybody, let's give a big applause to Goh Ai Ching, CEO and founder of Piktochart. You've been watching the AmBank BizClub show. Thank you for watching the show.